One of the things that I struggled a lot with in the beginning of my faith was Mary. Very, very intrusive images of myself being sexually abused. And I felt like there was no way that I could ever heal from this. Didn't necessarily like to pray growing up, but I did know that God was real and God was love. My name is Angéle Alonzo. I am 26 years old and I live in Ireland. I moved here when I was 19 years old to study medicine, and now I work as a medical doctor. My first identity is a daughter of God. Then I am a Roman Catholic, and I am a sister, a daughter, and a friend. I am one of four. I have two sisters and a younger brother. My parents, they are very, very amazing people. They love Jesus and they taught us how to pray, and prayer was always a very important part of our family life. I remember growing up, the rosary and praying as a family was a priority. Like, it didn't matter if you had homework or you had sports or you had some kind of after-school activity. When we got home, no matter what each of us were doing, we had to come home and pray. Another thing that was really important in our family was going to Mass. I didn't necessarily understand the Mass growing up, but I knew that we had to go to Mass, and Mass was, again, a priority. And I think I'm really blessed because I grew up with a father who really loved God and really was unashamed of his faith in God. And I think for me, that was such an image of the Father's love. The fact that the foundation of our family was that God is love and he loves us and he's always there for us and we could depend on him, that really made for a home that was just filled with just a lot of love and a lot of peace. When I was 16 years old, I started to really question my faith and question why I was Catholic. Now, I didn't question God or the existence of God. I knew God was real. But at that stage in my life, I was having a lot of anxiety and fear because I went to this really high-achieving high school, and I would just be constantly worried that I wouldn't pass exams or I wouldn't do well. And the only thing that really helped me would be looking at these Protestant pastors on television. And, you know, I just felt like they were so much more charismatic than my Catholic priests at home. So I started to question whether or not I even wanted to be Catholic. So I went to my dad because we have a really open relationship, and even at a young age, I knew I could tell him anything like that. So I went to him and I asked him, I was like, Dad, like, why are we Catholic? Like, above everything we can be, why Catholic? Like, I know you and Mom love God and I believe God is real, but, you know, I don't really understand the Mass. I don't really get what we do or why we do it. And it's so boring. Like, why are we Catholic? And my dad, he didn't really answer my question. He just turned to me and he said, do you love Jesus? I kind of fumbled with an answer. I was like, yeah, of course I love Jesus. Like, you're supposed to love Jesus. But he looked at me really seriously and he said, I want you to go on a journey to find out if Jesus is someone that you can love. You know, he's like, you're big now, you're old enough, go on this journey. So I took it really seriously. I think it was the grace from the Holy Spirit. And I went on the journey to find out if Jesus was someone I could love. I asked many people about their relationship with Jesus Christ. I read all the Gospels. I was just trying to find out as much as I could about him, because I didn't really know him. I kind of knew about him, but I didn't really know him. So I just wanted to find out, what was his life like? What did he say? What would make Jesus Christ lovable? So I think it was about 2 years after this conversation I had with my dad, I woke up one morning and I had the most incredible joy in my heart. Like I could not describe it. I could not explain it. I was just so confused. I was like, why am I so happy? Like, why am I so joyful? And it was that moment that this thought came to my head. It was, you love him, I love him. I was like, who do I love? Like, this is so strange. And the thought came, I love Jesus. Like, I love Jesus. Like, it was so bizarre. Like, it wasn't like, it was almost like the things I was doing and the ways I was learning about him was just planting a seed of love in my heart. And then God had just given me that gift. And I woke up with that realization that I had that gift. So I ran to my dad because I was so excited. I ran to him and I was like, Dad, I love him. I love him. I love him. And my dad was really confused. I remember he was like cutting carrots or something and he had a knife in his hand and he was like, who do you love? And he was this really serious face. And I was like, I love Jesus. It's Jesus. I love Jesus. And I had to remind him of the conversation we had before because he didn't remember, because it was I think it was about 1 to 2 years after. And then he said, okay, now go to this Jesus whom you love and who you have some of a relationship with and ask him to find you a home. And that home might be the Catholic Church or it might be a Protestant church. Whatever it is, your mom and I would be more than happy. We just want you to follow Jesus. Thank God, every time I've asked Jesus, where's my home? He said the Catholic Church. And I've struggled with a lot of the theology. I've struggled with a lot of things that the church has taught, but God has always led me to this place, this home. One of the things that I struggled a lot with in the beginning of my faith, even though my parents taught me the rosary and that was something we prayed a lot at home, was Mary. In hindsight, I look back on it now and I realize that a bit of it was jealousy. I was really jealous that she was so pure and so holy, and I felt that maybe I could never be that, and I wanted to be that, and I had this huge block when it came to Mary. When I was 19 years old, I left my family in Trinidad and I moved to Ireland to study medicine, to go to medical school. And moving from Trinidad to Ireland was a very difficult transition for me. I had never been away from my family. I had never been away from my home. I moved 1,000 miles away and I just found myself in the cold of winter and just all alone away from my parents and my family. And it was really, really challenging. I remember the first semester of medical school, I got really unwell. I was so unwell and I didn't have anyone really to depend on. I just started making friends and I wasn't very close with my roommates at the time. And I remember lying on the bed, crying because I missed my mom so much. Like any mother, my mom is amazing. Like if you're unwell, she'll always be there for you. She'd get you a cup of tea, she'd get you medication, she'll caress your back. And I just really missed her love and I missed her presence and I just felt so alone. And at that moment when I was lying in bed, I remember the words my mom told me when I was leaving for Ireland. She said, Angele, one day, you'll be in a place somewhere in Ireland and you won't have me, but know that, Mary, she's your mother and she's going to be there for you. So if you need her and I can't be there, just call on her and she'll be there for you. And the Holy Spirit brought it into my heart to pray. And it was a really simple prayer. I just said, Mary, Mother, please be a mother to me now. And in that moment, the suffering didn't cease. The pain was still there. But I felt this incredible peace, the kind of peace I'd feel as if my own mother was just there with me, just loving me. My soul was comforted and I didn't feel alone anymore. And then I had the opportunity to go to Medjugorje And Medjugorje was an amazing experience. It was such a peaceful place. I think it was the first time in my life I had ever experienced so much peace in such a long period of time. Like I'd had glimpses of that kind of peace before, but never so long and never so sustained. And when I returned from Medjugorje, I felt this fire in my heart of love for Our Lady and a fire in my heart of love for Jesus. And I really wanted to follow God. I really wanted to be more intentional in prayer and be a better disciple of Jesus Christ. So I would go on these retreats and try to learn as much as I could theology-wise and how to be a disciple. There was one silent retreat that I went to that was hosted by some of the sisters here in Ireland. And it was a very difficult retreat emotionally. From the start of the retreat, the priest, he walked us through this exercise in your childhood. And he did give a disclaimer. He said, when people do this exercise, sometimes things come up from their childhood that they may not have been aware had happened, some wounds from their childhood. So if this happens to you, it's normal, you know? So I started to engage in the exercise with the priest. There were many other women there. It wasn't just myself. We were before the Blessed Sacrament, and he was taking us through this reflective exercise. So I started to engage in it, and I suddenly started to see very, very intrusive images of myself as a child being sexually abused. And my first thought was, what on earth? Like, I'm imagining things like, you know, this priest, because he said this, that's why I'm like having these thoughts and these images. Like, there's no way this is real. Except it kept coming, and they were very intrusive. And I started to just feel in my heart that this was true. Like this really did happen to me. And I was so little that I had completely concealed the memory through in my adult life. And after that exercise, I was determined to leave the retreat. I wanted to run away from this knowledge of this had happened. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to pretend it didn't, and I just wanted to leave. So I told one of the sisters that I need to go, that I just left her a note that I need to go. So she decided to talk to me about why I wanted to go. So I explained to her what had happened. She turned to me and she said, Our Lady brought you here so that you could know this, so that she could heal you, so that she could bring you to her Son to heal you. When these images come, just run to Our Lady. I remember being really upset with the sister. I was like, this is not enough. I need help. I need psychological, emotional help. However, I did stay in the retreat, but I was a complete mess. I was a complete emotional mess. I went back to my work, and the work that I do is very emotional, very traumatic at times, dealing with patients and their own trauma. And I felt like I was not coping. There would be so many days I'd wake up in the morning to go to work and wish that I had never woken up. I started to have so many temptations to just a lot of suicidal thoughts and thoughts that I should have never been born. I was really not coping with this information. I felt so broken, such a mess. And I felt like there was no way that I could ever heal from this. And I cried out to God to bring someone to heal me, and I just felt there was so much shame as well. There was so much shame and pain and hurt, and I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone. I felt like I couldn't even talk to my family. And so but the words of the sister, it kept coming back to me. She said, run to Our Lady. Run to her, because she loves you and she wants to heal you. And because this had happened to me, because I could see the images of this man hurting me and wounding me, it was so hard to go to Jesus. Even though I did still love Jesus, it was so hard to come to Jesus. In those dark moments, I did turn to Our Lady. I started to pray the rosary, but I started to pray the 4 mysteries of the rosary every morning before work. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. and pray it, because if I didn't, I would just be an emotional mess and I'd just be breaking down. There were times at work, if I didn't pray the rosary, I'd just hide in the bathroom and cry and cry and cry because I was in so much pain.
This life that I've been living has brought me to this end. I come before you, Jesus. Help me be born again. Set me on the straight and narrow. Forgive me of my sin. Show me how I should live. A new life I begin. Thy will be done. Oh, that I may follow your designs. Thy will be done. I'll labor to conform my will to thine. Thy kingdom come and live and reign within this heart of mine, as it is in heaven, now and forever. Thy will be done.
I felt so much anger. I was angry at God. I was angry at myself. I was angry at my parents for not protecting me. I was angry that it happened, and I was angry at this person for hurting me. Then I went to this retreat with a very powerful priest, and he gave a talk before confession. He was going to host confession with the people at the retreat, but he gave a talk and said that, you know, when you go to the confessional, you have to make sure to confess your emotions. Emotions like anger are normal emotions, but you need to confess them because there is, you know, they can lead to sin and they are the roots of sin. So don't just confess sin, confess the roots of sin. So confess anger, confess fear, confess discouragement. So I went to confession with this priest and I told him that I was angry. And I had a lot of anger and a lot of fear. And up to this stage, I had never told a priest about what had happened to me as a child. And he stayed in silence for a couple of seconds. I think he was calling on the Holy Spirit or something. And then he turned to me and he said, "Who are you angry at? Who are you really angry at?" And I felt the grace to tell him that I am angry at the person who abused me. I am angry that they hurt me this way, that they wounded me this way, and that they have now, you know, ruined my life. And he put his hands over mine and he said, "We are going to forgive this person now, right here, in the grace of confession, in this confessional. We are going to forgive him together." He was like, "I know you don't want to forgive. I know that you're angry, but I am going to help you and we're going to forgive." And so he walked me through this prayer of forgiveness where I said the words after him that I forgive this person for having treated me this way, for having violated me, violated my innocence, for having wounded me. And it was a really powerful moment in confession, because after that I felt a peace enter my heart. I look back and I just know in those dark moments, Our Lady was there, and through praying the rosary, she covered me in her blue mantle and she took me in her arms like a mother and helped me through the woundedness. I don't feel despair anymore. I have hope, and that Our Lady's praying for me, and that when those thoughts come, when the darkness comes, I could run to her. I could run to her arms and I could find a safe place, away from the darkness.
Beautiful flower of Carmel, most fruitful vine, splendor of heaven, holy and singular, mother mine, who brought forth the Son of God, remaining a virgin pure, star of the sea, help and protect me, show me you are my mother. Holy Mary, without sin conceived, show me you are my mother.
I graduated from medical school in 2020. They called us the class of COVID-19. It was a really uncertain time for everyone, not just obviously people who were going into the medical profession, not just, other healthcare professionals, but it was such a time of fear and anxiety and uncertainty. However, I felt a grace from God that, He would be my strength and everything would be okay. God gave me the grace as well to pray the divine mercy for patients. And that really helped me reconcile death and reconcile the suffering that I was seeing around me. After going to Medjugorje, praying the rosary was almost effortless. It was like I was just transported back to Medjugorje again every time I'd pray the rosary. And I used to kind of have this image in my mind where I'd be sitting having tea with Mary and I'd be praying my rosary, and that would be our tea time. That would be our quality time. I don't know where life is going to take me. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not afraid because I'll always have my mother.
My name is Michael O'Neill. In The Miracle Hunter, we're looking at the miraculous icons of the Virgin Mary from all around the world. A famous one from Croatia, Mother of Bistrica, is one of these black Madonnas that are seen throughout all of Europe. In this case, it was made around 1400, but it was buried for safekeeping in protection from the Turks. But in 1525, a supernatural light shone upon that spot and they rediscovered where it was buried. In 1588, they had to bury it in the walls again, and in 1684, it was discovered another time. In 1930, she was declared the Mother of Croatia and became known as one of the most famous Marian icons in all of Christian history.
Are you searching for purpose of life? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.